So as my dad said, I'm going to kind of face more of the medical aspect of traumatic brain injury. This is my world. This is what I deal with on a daily basis. And unfortunately, I get to see way too much of it. And what I like to see about facilities like this is in medicine, we're very good on the front lines. We're very good at when things happen. But more and more often, the ball is dropped in the follow-up and what is done with people afterwards, whether it's rehabilitation from addictions, whether it's long-term rehabilitation from injuries and those sort of things. Medicine does a very bad job in holding on to people. And so what I found in Lexington, in our area, more often than not, it takes individual motivation and the individual folks that have a connection to it, that make a change, that make these things happen, like a facility like this. So this, what I'm going to talk about, you're going to get a little bit of a brief, some of you already had plenty of experience with this, a brief medical degree here on traumatic brain injury. So some of the things I see, the reason these things happen, what happens, to help you understand more of the importance of these types of programs. This picture here is actually one of my patients that I had, somebody that would definitely need to be in these types of services following this. Can't remember exactly what happened to them, but needless to say, a very serious injury. So traumatic brain injury, what this is a catchphrase. It's a huge term to refer to everything from minor concussions that we see when it comes to athletes, when you fall and bump your head, all the way up to the most severe brain injuries that can be life-altering. Involved, as I mentioned, everything concussions, which is by far the most common. It is now tracked by the CDC. It became mandated back in 1996 that the CDC would track the prevalence of brain injuries and report on it on a regular basis. So if you need information, want to know the extent of the issue, you can go to the CDC. It's one of my favorite sites for everything I do media-wise. The CDC is the place to go. So I saw in one of the pamphlets I got from here, the quote, "the silent epidemic." And we already had that on there. It's something that they mentioned as well. It's something that is an underlying, as I say, we see the front line, we see the car wrecks. Everybody, when you see a car rolled off the side of the road, all of us turns our necks and takes a look at, as much as we get angry at the person in front of us for doing the exact same thing. We all want to see, but at the same time, we don't see what happens afterwards. Basically, our skull is a vault. It's a contained space. And so whenever you have a change in volume of something, something else has got to give. So when you have a brain injury, that area of the brain that's injured swells. So something has to give, some space has to give. And so that pressure builds up, starts to push out the fluid in the brain, and eventually starts to put pressure on the brain itself, which causes the vast majority of the secondary injuries we see as brain injuries. Two types of injuries we see. The direct injury, when the brain hits. So when you stop, a deceleration injury, the brain hits, and then it bounces backwards. So you get an injury on both sides of the brain. So what we call a coup and a contra coup injury. So an injury on both sides of the brain that has to do with the brain moving inside the skull. So the skull is a vault, and that protects us wonderfully, but also serves as the reason for the vast majority of complications with these types of injuries. In Kentucky, this is one of the most popular pictures ever taken. People love this picture because it's the Kentucky player laying out Tim Tebow. So Tim Tebow ended up in our emergency room and admitted to our hospital for a traumatic brain injury and concussion. Couldn't remember his name for a little while, apparently, from what I heard. I was actually out of town, and as soon as it happened, we were in Florida. I had 15 texts to find out if I was working in the ER that night. But what we more often see is this. So sports make the headlines. Sports is what we see. All you're seeing in the media right now in terms of brain injuries is the long-term effects associated with NFL players. But the vast majority of us, we're not NFL players. We're not going to have that type of experience. We're going to have these types of experience. Brain injuries aren't scheduled. Brain injuries are accidents that take place and we never know when they're going to happen. So with car wrecks, by far the most common reason for significant brain injuries. Also falls. We see this all too common, especially with children. Children are invincible. At least in their own minds they're invincible. I get to learn all too often that they're not. That when you don't take the precautions, you take risks, you take on the challenges with those risks as well. I see a med school, a residency friend of ours that does a lot of skateboarding down in Florida, He's always posting his injuries online. Thank goodness he's smart enough to always wear a helmet when he's skateboarding, because he's broken several bones and ended up in the ER several times because of his hobbies. And unfortunately, when they make these decisions or when the accidents happen, they end up in a place like this. This is where I work. This is the new Chandler Medical Center at Lexington, Kentucky, for the University of Kentucky. That's our trauma center. Come starting about a month from now, trauma season starts, and you may wonder, there's actual season for trauma. Yes. Once the first warm weekend starts up, we'll start to get an influx of traumas characterized by head injuries, and trauma season starts, and it carries throughout the summer and usually ends about the first freeze in the fall. So right now we're dealing with a lot of flu, a lot of infections, a lot of pneumonia, those sort of things. But come in about a month, month and a half, we'll get into trauma season. And so we have, in that area, we have 12 trauma bays. We've had as many as 20 patients in there. Typically we'll see 20 to 30 traumas a day. Summer, in a busy time of year, we may see 40 to 50 significant traumas, many of which have head injuries. And a lot of times now, with the safety characteristics of cars, it can be an isolated head injury. The rest of the person is completely fine. So here's the numbers. Number one cause of death and disability of people under age 45. Now, it's not that the numbers go down after that. It's that other morbidities and other mortalities start to catch up then when it comes to heart disease, diabetes, cancer, those sort of things. So it's not that the numbers go down. It's just the other numbers start to come up. Contributing factor in 1 of 3 of all trauma-related deaths. Falls are the number one cause of traumatic brain injury, but MVCs are the number one cause for traumatic brain injury-related death. So what we're saying there is that you're most likely to end up in front of me because of a fall than you are of an MVC. So traumatic brain injury has 3 spikes during the life. 0 to 4, kids, they've got soft skulls, they fall a lot, they're learning to walk. My kids, both of them have done the stair slide at some point where they've gone diving down into our basement. Thank God everything was okay with both of those. 15 to 19, that's the highest risk. That's when kids are learning to drive also. Their risk associated with the first 2 years of driving is significantly increased over the rest of their life. And then over age 65, once we start to get to ages where falling becomes more common too. And for anybody close to that age range around here, including Dad, if you get up to go to the restroom in the middle of the night, turn on the light. It doesn't matter if you wake your spouse up. The number of times I've seen people in the ER because they wanted to go to the bathroom and not wake up their spouse and ended up opening up the basement door instead of the bathroom door and taking the plunge. So turn on the light. It's not worth it. And then elderly are highest risk for hospitalization and death just because of their comorbidities. Patient, 85-year-old just last week who fell, unable to kind of brace themselves, get their hands in the way, ended up having a significant head injury and fracturing her neck as well. So it's really kind of the tip of the iceberg, though. The deaths associated with it, the hospitalizations, the emergency room visits, and then the number of people that have minor head injuries that never end up in the emergency room. It's always just the tip of the iceberg. So what we're dealing with here, what we're helping with here, is starting to help that rehabilitation process, the research, the things necessary to help downstream, to help work on that part of the iceberg that's sitting under the water. Traumatic brain injury, every age group, it's not going to surprise me a bit, the way I behaved as a child. Males are the highest risk than females. That's across the board from beginning to end. And males 0 to 4 have the highest rate for ER visits, hospitalizations, and deaths combined. You guys saw this probably last week. If you're a NASCAR fan, I know a lot of you are. If this would have been 20 years ago, we'd be talking about 20 fans that had been killed. We'd probably be talking about 2 or 3 drivers that have been probably died. But what we're talking about, and what I want to emphasize here, and what people can take home, is how we prevent. Prevention is advancing at incredible rates at all types of sports, driving, personal activities, those sort of things. This right here is a testimony for why these advancements are important, and why, as the general consumer not involved in professional athletics, we need to take these on as well. So what can we do? The most important is protection. It's taking the steps you can do. You only get one brain. You got to protect it. It doesn't take much. Most people, especially kids, don't understand how fragile the human body is. It doesn't take much to cause a permanent change or do something that we cannot turn around. And of course, the statement I hear all the time is, if I would have only known, or if we would have only done this. So it's the protection, whether it's construction with the protective equipment, whether it's kids on bicycles. If your kids are ever on any type of moving equipment, anything with a wheel, and don't have a helmet on, that's a fail. Whether they're going 5 feet or whether they're going 5 miles, they need to have on a helmet. They need to have on the pads and protective equipment. The vast majority of kids I see in our pediatric ER would have never come to the ER if they would have worn a helmet. Football, we've got my daughter right there, right in the middle. I know here horses are very important, but that I'm sure the horses here pale in comparison to how important they are and how we revolve around them in Lexington, Kentucky. Thank goodness the vast majority of horse things happen outside of basketball season, because that's the other thing that's important out there. But as you can see here, my daughter, before we even put her on there, she's got a helmet on, because up here and around our area, the demographic of trauma around here is very similar to our demographic of trauma. It's blunt force trauma associated with horses, four-wheelers, cars, those sort of things. It's not like when you get into Cincinnati, Louisville, Atlanta, where you have more of what we call the knife and gun club. We get a lot more of that penetrating trauma. It's blunt force trauma around here, having worked in the EDs and the trauma services here as well. So personal protective equipment, snowboarding around here, if you've learned to snow or ski or do that sort of thing, if you don't wear a helmet, you're asking for it. I never wore a helmet when I was here. I never wore a helmet up at Beach and Sugar Mountain, learning to ski on ice. Went to Salt Lake City, Utah for the first time about a year and a half ago, and we were getting our skis and everything, and the guy said, "You need to get you a helmet." I said, "I've never worn a helmet." Like, if you're skiing with us, you're wearing a helmet. So we wore a helmet, and that's if you go out west, every single person on the ski slopes has one, and I can find out very quickly, especially when you're my height and you've grown out of your coordination 20 years ago, that the helmet is very important. Now in Kentucky, we don't have a helmet law for motorcycles. It's your choice, or as we call them, the donor cycles. This young man right here, an 18-year-old, he was very smart for making the decision of wearing his helmet. He came into the ER just because of precautionary, but he walked out 3 hours later with nothing more than bumps, abrasions, and bruises because his helmet saved his life. If you look at that helmet right there, I don't know how well you can see it from the back. The face mask on the bottom is cracked, the lens is cracked, and it's cracked all the way through the back. That kid walked out of there with no injuries, other than a probably $20,000 hospital bill. But he can get over that. What we can do, make sure that we're safe in everything we do around the house, especially with kids. Those are my girls right there on the right side. Always seatbelted in. My wife made sure that I went through and did special training on how to put the car seats in the car, and that come Hades or high water, where those things aren't budging in that car. And so even when we're traveling, we have them buckled in safely all the time. And so making sure with kids that you have those in properly. And we've done stories on that with the media several times because it's so important, especially if we're with internal medicine pediatrics. The boppy chair, is that what that's called? A boppy chair? Bumpo. They've been recalled, by the way. If you've got one, you need to take it back. There was a lot of trauma associated with that. We did it. We had to put that on top of the counter with the kids, and what unfortunately happens is they shift their weight and they roll over, and had a lot of problems with them falling off countertops. So those have been recalled. Research. Making sure that what we're seeing down there is a research with helmet of the soldiers. Making sure that we are cutting edge, so we have the most technology, that we're taking the mistakes we've made in the past and using them in prevention in the future. And for that, that's all I've got. This was us at Churchill Downs a couple months ago at Downs After Dark. So protect those that you love. I'm very happy and very proud to be here. It's such a wonderful thing, and seeing how, after they've come through our doors, how we can get people back on their feet and help them in these difficult changes and difficult times. Thank you very much.